Nice to see you again. My name is Kammy Chang, a mom with 2 kids attending schools in Palo Alto Unified School District. Earlier, I learned about Gunn High School and the many new changes taking place this year. If you're interested, please check out my video on YouTube. Today, let's focus on Palo Alto High School, otherwise known as PALY. PALY was the first public high school in Palo Alto. It is located across the street from Stanford University. What kind of learning environment does PALY offer? How would students describe their school? Any new policies that would be implemented this school year to provide a different learning experience? First, let's take a look what defines PALY.
Spirited, I think there's a real strong sense of tradition here. I like to think of PALY as a place for everyone. I think we've got a lot of really excellent programs and opportunities for students.
I would say that PALY is privileged. It is definitely a privilege to come to this school, even though it's a public high school, just because there are so many resources, it really does feel limitless because there are just so many opportunities to explore where a lot of times students will feel overwhelmed. But I think that being in the heart of the Silicon Valley, we are very lucky to have these opportunities.
I'd say the competition is really high at my school. PALY is known for having a pretty good sports program, including also other stuff like journalism too. So everybody wants to do well in different fields.
Our journalism program is one of the best in the nation, if not the best. But at PALY, we actually have a yearbook, a newspaper, a news magazine, online media. We have a digital broadcasting, we have a radio show. We actually have 12 publications in total, so we're pretty fortunate to have that here.
It's good that it promotes learning, it wants kids to succeed, but I think it could be toned down a bit in terms of academic competitiveness.
The negative thing about PALY is definitely the stress climate. You have to figure out how to live your own life at PALY.
In high-achieving schools across the nation, competitive environments are commonly found. Competition can lead to pressure, which, like many things in life, can cause stress. How to handle stress is a real challenge for high schoolers.
This is a community issue. This is not just a school issue. It starts with parents and students. And I appreciate that they want to excel and do well. But again, if they're worried about what their friends are getting for a grade, that's distracting from learning. We kind of need to reshape some of the parents' expectations in the culture here. These schools are gifts to our students, are a gift to our state, they're a gift to the future of our country. But not if the pressure is just where are you going to school next.
There's no easy way to say, okay, we could stop academic stress if parents just laid off, or if teachers just laid off, or if friends just laid off, because it all kind of culminates into this, I think, internal drive, but also internal guilt whenever you don't do anything well. So it's a very complex kind of identity that people have taken on. But I think it's also important to note that a lot of kids at PALY don't have this identity. And when we constantly talk about these kids who are striving to get A's, A+, who are unhappy with B's, I think we forget to focus on these kids who are struggling to pass classes.
My first 3 years, I don't think I was as stressed out or as piling on as much pressure as I have right now. I really didn't get into that culture until second semester of sophomore year. So all of freshman year and some of sophomore year, I was more just happy-go-lucky. I finished my homework to the bare minimum and I go out and have fun with my friends. Then once I realized that a lot of my friends were doing all of these academic advancements and a lot of things that were more stressful and had more pressure, I realized that I am competing amongst them to get into college and that I can't really lose either. So I decided to kind of pick up the pace, and then ever since then it's been work, work, work. It's very competitive. I'm a competitive person, so I think that's why I enjoy speech and debate so much. I think it's extremely positive. I honestly don't know anyone who's been negatively impacted by the competition within the speech and debate community because we all try to help each other out while still remaining competitive. Like, a lot of my closest friends are speech and debaters from different schools that I competed against once, and then we got to know each other after the round, and that's sort of how our friendship began.
I started out from a very high pressure place and pushing myself to be constantly better, and I did get a little worn out, and then I got in a series of accidents. I got a couple concussions and messed up my back a little bit that kind of forced me to take a step back. And I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling that I'm not the 4.0 2400 kid that I wanted to be freshman year.
Many students feel it is impossible to go through high school without stress. What are the things school officials have done at PALY to reduce academic pressure?
We've had the block schedule for 4 years now, and it's been really successful here on our campus.
Personally, I really like the block schedule. I think although it's a 90-minute class period, most of my teachers give me like a break at 45 minutes. So I think it's not too long because you do get a break and a breather.
It gives you an opportunity to really talk about the subject matter in depth with your teachers, and it also means that you don't have to do your homework for all of your classes on a day. And I think that's the biggest advantage of the block schedule, is that I only have to do homework for 3 classes a day. So I'm never overwhelmed. And I think that that's a really good policy that should be implemented in other schools as well.
The block schedule appears to work for PALY students. A 2014 Stanford University study recommended that the optimum range of homework hours for high school students should be from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours per night. Does PALY have a homework policy?
Homework policy has been in existence for a while, for a couple of years, and it said a maximum of 7 to 10 hours a week for high school students. But you can expect more if you're in AP or honors classes, but more was never defined.
There should be stricter policies in terms of the amount of time and effort people should be putting into homework each night.
We need to reduce some of the academic pressure and actually kind of redirect some of the students' efforts. Again, redirected away from just seeking high grade point averages to toward learning for learning's sake and nurturing that sense again of curiosity and creativity. We don't want to eliminate stress because they need to be resilient. Right? They need that strength and self-confidence. So some steps that we're taking, we're enforcing the homework policy that says the weekly average for high school students, even students in honors and advanced classes, should be no more than 15 hours a week.
There's a lot of homework, but I think in general, there seems to be an appropriate amount of homework considering the classes that we're taking. For example, I'm taking all honors classes and that stuff, but so there is more homework for those. But I mean, that kind of just comes with taking harder courses. So it's fitting, but at the same time, I think it could be cut down a bit less.
I think the bigger question that we're kind of grappling with as a school is the relevancy of homework and the purpose of homework. What we find when we talk to our kids is, they don't mind the homework so much when they know that it's really helping them learn and understand the material, and they see it as a benefit. It's when it feels like busy work or rote work or kind of that drill and skill homework that's really when they're just not as engaged.
There's just this huge physical quantity of homework that some of these kids have that I just can't imagine having to go through, that there's no trick to doing it. It's just going to take 4 hours. And that's just one class.
That's the challenge, is how do we have our teachers working together and communicating with each other, and then our students also feeling comfortable enough to tell their teachers and talk to their teachers when they feel like there is either too much homework on a given night or too many tests on a certain day.
Freshman year, I probably slept like 8 hours, and then junior year, some nights would be 4 hours, some nights would be 6 hours, and then on the weekends you catch up. So there's a big accumulated sleep debt.
We've already agreed that Thanksgiving, winter break, spring break, and the February President's Weekend would be homework-free holidays. So we've asked teachers to be really mindful for planning purposes next year that they don't put too much homework either right before the break or right after the break, so that the kids aren't stressed out before they have the weekend or when they come back from that weekend. So we're having conversations, and we call that PDF. We want everybody to have playtime, downtime, and family time.
I like to go to bed earlier most days because I do have to stay up pretty late doing homework most days.
We're looking at our C days, which is our 7-period day here at PALY. Okay. On Mondays, typically, all 7 periods will meet for about 55 minutes. And our students report that that's a very stressful day for them because not only do they have 7 different teachers and 7 different classes, a lot of transitions, but typically they find that they have a lot of projects due, homework due, and in some cases tests on that 7-period day. Having the C day, that 7-period day on a Monday, a lot of them will spend a lot of time Saturday and Sunday doing homework. So we're trying to figure out a way we can reduce the number of tests, reduce the number of major projects. We'll use that 7-period day to kind of start the week, to do a little bit of review from the week past and set us up nicely for the week that lies ahead.
There are different reasons why students take advanced placement classes. short for AP. One of the reasons is to show colleges that students are capable of doing college-level work and they are motivated. It could be true that AP classes will add luster to students' college application. However, more private high schools eliminated AP classes recently. What is the guideline for AP classes at PALY?
We don't limit the number of AP classes. We use 2 AP classes as a guideline. We think that's really a best practice. Given the coursework and the homework load, making sure that our students are getting adequate sleep. That's another thing that we've noticed, or pattern we notice when we poll kids and we talk to students. They will trade sleep to spend more time on homework, and we're really trying to drive home the fact that they really need 8 to 9 hours of sleep each night, and not to compromise their sleep to take on more APs.
I'm taking 4 AP classes and 1 honors class, and then Verde, which is our publication. And I think that's considered to be a pretty heavy workload. I took specific AP classes that I really enjoy, but I do think it might be hard to manage. I'm not sure yet. You can get back to me in a couple of months.
It's always going to be a decision that I made to take less APs, and I was less stressed, but then I think I'm always going to be thinking, what if I'd taken these APs? I could have gotten into a better school. Which is, I think, this game that every PALY kid plays with themselves, is the what if game.
This is more of a factor of college admissions than it is something than our culture here. So I'm already working with people over at Stanford to try to change this conversation, to change some admission practices and policies. And we have a consortium of districts like ours around the country, and this is one of our goals next year. We're going, as a group, start meeting with admissions directors and say, our top students are really, they're hurting themselves by taking too many APs, and we need you, as the top colleges, to start rethinking how you admit students and what you're looking for from our students.
I've had a panic attack before due to all of my stress, and it was very scary, and I didn't really know what to do with myself. Really, that's only happened to me once. I know there are people who have claimed that their menstrual cycle has been out of whack because of all the stress that they've had. I usually talk to my friends, but they're also pretty stressed out at the same time. But I feel like I do have a very supportive and caring group of friends. I do know that there are some students who overload their schedule so much with APs and extracurriculars and honors classes where they don't really have that opportunity to understand the material to depth where they become actually engaged in it. So I think the problem is really when you sort of force yourself to take classes that you don't like just because colleges will want them on your resume or on your transcript. And at that point, you really lose that intrinsic motivation and it becomes stressful.
Besides AP classes, project-based curriculum has become more popular in the recent years. What do kids learn from this type of program? What are the opportunities for PALY students to participate in programs like this?
We're really excited about this at PALY and across all of the secondary schools. We know that our students learn best when they're doing, when they're making, when they're creating, when they're engaged. And so it's something that we're slowly making that shift from a 20th century model of education where students are sitting in rows behind desks, teachers are at the front of the classroom, to now looking at really solving real world problems. And the best way to do that is through a project-based curriculum.
And actually, we have right now a science research project over at PALY. We're going to bring the similar project to Gunn, but we're expanding it beyond sciences to the humanities, to the social sciences.
The course description is that you find a mentor in the scientific community, you put in 5 hours a week and create your own project, but work on a project and then give a presentation on it at the end of the year, and you get a year's worth of honors science credits. And I just emailed out randomly the blind professors who I was interested in their work and said, hi, can I please work with you? And my first choice professor emailed me back and said, of course, which was incredible. I was like, oh my God.
So the students who do these research projects, this will be on their transcript, the name of the project, who their mentor was, and frankly, you'll find the colleges start competing for students like this.
That's kind of been a really incredible experience, just working in that lab and being able to kind of see the working professional world of what it takes to be a scientist, because I've always been interested in behavioral psychology and neuroscience.
This is a growing trend, and I think the college admissions folks are going to adjust their expectations. I think they're aligning and changing their own curriculum and their own way of teaching as well.
Practical training is bringing what one learns in the classroom to real life. This is how schools and the working world come together. And now, a few questions from parents and students. the school district provide a venue for parents and students to voice their concerns? If so, do school officials give credence to these concerns?
That's a really great question. So students fill out course evaluations at the end of every course. And what we find with that, though, is the teachers, they ask different questions. So what we're hoping to do is find more of a systemic approach that we're asking the same questions of all of our teachers and all of our courses, and then finding a way for teachers to be able to compare, what the students are saying and telling them about their class.
I think I've talked to a couple people about is they feel that a lot of the focus at PALY is more on the A student who doesn't want to get a B versus the C student who doesn't want to get a D.
The biggest problem with the academia at PALY is that a lot of the teachers don't really align their courses within a specific course. So for example, if you take one English class that has the same name in the course catalog, it may vary based on the teacher. So one teacher will only give one student an A, whereas another teacher will give 50% of their class an A. So that kind of comes off as unfair. But I know that the district is already taking steps towards fixing that.
Okay.
I think overall, that would probably be the biggest concern among the student population.
Parents, it's the same thing. We have a form that parents can fill out, but that is not anonymous. Parents do need to put their name, write their name, and very few parents take advantage of that. Usually what we see is just more informal means, usually email or a parent conference. A lot of times when we get that informal information, we redirect the parent to speak to the teacher directly, because they really need to hear it straight from the source. If there's anything that's really egregious, then it becomes a personnel issue, and in that case, there would be a formal process that we would go through with our human resources assistant superintendent to document and make sure that those concerns are in a teacher's file. But those situations are very rare on our campus. So we're really trying to change the culture at our school. The teachers want to hear from their students.
The other thing we need to do is really work on sleep. You need to stay up, you need to outlast your kids as moms and dads. You really can't go to bed before they do, because after you do, they're up really late, and that leads to a lot of pressure. It leads to all kinds of problems.
Something else would be educating parents on how to talk to their kids about stress and mental health, and educating them on ways to kind of relieve the stress, because there's a lot of students don't feel like they can talk to their parents. I tried talking to my mom about it, and this is where I got the idea that we should educate our parents, because my mom was just like, Karina, get over it. But I think it's mainly just because she grew up in an environment that is completely different from mine. Like, I don't blame her for maybe not responding in the most sensitive way.
So I think high school has prepared me well to be successful in the future, because you have to know what you have to put in to get out what you want.
We thank the students and school officials for sharing their stories and explaining some of the new policies. Everyone experiences stress and frustration in life. Learning to manage stress is a skill set. One important takeaway lesson for parents is that we must try to have open communication with our children and be open-minded. We hope all the new changes we mentioned in this program will have a positive impact on the students and the school. And I hope to bring you the updated information in the future. Let's keep the communication lines open.